Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to demonstrate a very useful tool that you'll find in the software called N.I.N.A, N-I-N-A, which stands for Nighttime Imaging N Astronomy. It is a highly useful program and it's free, which is the best part about it. And the specific feature that I'm going to highlight today is called the Framing Assistant. And when you open N.I.N.A, you'll be greeted with a screen similar to this. It's a highly unusual menu structure, especially if you're used to Windows programs or Mac programs that have a pretty typical menu pull down up here at the top. But in N.I.N.A, it's more on the side. These icons over here are the main icons, and if there is a sub-menu, then there'll be a second one here. So right now it opens by default to the equipment setting. I don't have any equipment attached at the moment, so some of the stuff is going to be blank. But here we'll see over here on the side the framing tab, and you'll see the framing assistant. To begin, the most important thing you need to do is to put in your camera parameters. Now most likely these will be auto-populated if you've already attached and configured your camera under the equipment setting here. In my case, I have the ZWO ASI 585MC Pro, which is a one-shot color camera. And although it's not connected right now, I have pre-populated the important statistics. The pixel width and the pixel height, as in the number of pixels, and then the pixel size, and then almost as importantly is the focal length of your telescope or camera lens, whichever you're using. And the reason that these are important is that it will create a frame based on the size of your camera and the focal length and how it will frame the particular object that you pick. So let's get started and pick an object. The other night I did image M63. So if we enter M63 here, you'll get a pull down menu. It's kind of hard to see with the color here, but it says M63 there, and I will select that, and it auto-populates the coordinates. And then the next important thing that you want to try is to change is the field of view. Now it's set automatically at 1 arc minute, and we'll see if that's large enough for the object and the camera sensor to get a good idea of how it'll be framed. Now, the image source up here by default is a NASA Sky Survey. I've always found this to be completely adequate, so I am not changing it right now, and I'm going to leave the Sky Survey as the default. And then what you want to do is, in order to see what the image looks like and how it might be framed in your camera sensor, is you load the image. Now, of course, you must be connected to the internet at this point to be able to download this image. And you can see the progress here. Now over here you can see that the object is in the center, and based on the current camera and telescope parameters that I put in here, this is how it will be framed. You can see the rectangle is the sensor and the object here is how it would be framed. Now this is almost a perfect framing for my particular sensor, and so you can play around. For a larger object you might want to have a bigger field of view. Let's change the field of view, and what you'll see is the image, the overall image will be much larger, but it'll still show the same framing. Okay, so you can see that the overall field is larger, but the way the object is framed remains the same. Now, another cool feature of this framing assistant is, let's say you pick a larger object. All right, let's take a larger image, M31, which is the Andromeda galaxy. M31. It's important that you select the object once a list comes up, because if you don't, the coordinates won't be auto-populated. So let's go ahead and select that. And now we'll load the image. Now as you can see, this is the field of view of my camera sensor. It'll be the M31 is way too large to be done in one image. So this also has an auto mosaic feature where you can change the number of panels to create a mosaic. So if we do more horizontal, more vertical, we get more of the galaxy, but we probably want to go even bigger. That almost incorporates the whole thing. You can also change the amount of overlap here. You can see the panels overlap, which makes mosaicing software a lot more easy. And you can go down with, you can see the overlap goes down. The default is set at 20%, and that's probably the best option. Obviously, you can see there's a total of 12 panels. And that's going to be kind of impractical for an object of this size. It can be done, of course. It's going to take multiple nights to do that. But for this particular object, it would probably be better to have a larger camera or a shorter focal length. So let's see what happens if we put in take half the focal length, 390, and then we'll load the image. So you can see now with a shorter focal length, the same object can be done in probably 6 panels. Now we're going to go back to the default 1 panel because we're not going to do a mosaic. And we're going to go back to 780 on the focal length and load the image. Another cool feature besides the mosaic is that you can set a certain amount of rotation, which will be transferred to the image sequencer, which we're going to show in a few minutes here. You can change the rotation, and you can see that the camera sensor will rotate. We're not doing this object. Let's go back to M63. Don't forget to select it and load the image. And you can see the rotation again. This object is pretty well framed as is, but if I wanted to make it like more of a vertical orientation, you could do something like that. Anyway, you can play with that depending on the object. The object might be a little bit tilted, in which case the rotation would be appropriate to make it look better in the framing. We'll go back to 0. Okay, now once we've got it framed, we can send it to the sequencer. And if you pick on, select Add Target to the sequencer, I don't recommend the legacy sequencer. It's not nearly as powerful and full-featured as the advanced sequencer, which is just the sequencer here. Now, if you're doing this for the first time, you'll get 2 options. You'll get the Deep Sky Object Instruction Set or the Basic Sequence Target. I would recommend the Basic Sequence Target to start with. Now watch what happens when I select that. We're taken to the Image Sequencer tab over here. And you can see there's a lot of default settings here on the left side here. Some of this is just annotations, which are notes explaining what's happening with the instructions. But you can see at the top here that M63 has been selected. The coordinates are automatically inputted, and the camera rotation is inputted also. We had selected 0 degrees, but if you had selected, say, 90 degrees, it would show up here. And when you're actually taking the images, if you have a camera rotator, it will automatically rotate the camera. Or if you do it manually, it will tell you exactly how many degrees to turn it one direction or the other. And you can see some of the sample commands are under the instructions. Slew, center, and rotate. The actual instruction choices are over here. There's a lot of them. For instance, camera. If you want to cool your camera first, if you have a dedicated astro camera with cooling, you're going to want to take this command and drag it over here. You want to do that before you start any of the commands, obviously. So when you start the sequence, which will be this button over here, first thing it will do is to cool the camera, and then it will slew the camera to the object, center it, and tell you how much you need to rotate it, or it will automatically do that if you have a rotator. Now the centering will involve plate solving. So you're going to have in your options over here, you're going to have your plate solving set up. That's not in the scope of this video, but make sure that you have your plate solving set up here. And we're going to go back to sequencing. So once you do that, it will do that automatically. It's really quite amazing. And then it will run an autofocus if you have an autofocuser. If you don't, then presumably you will focus that manually and you won't need this command. And then it will start guiding. Most people now are using the PhD2 free software, which is excellent guiding software. And that will be one of the, when you set up your equipment, you're going to have to set up the auto guiding, the guider here. And PhD2 stands for Push Here Dummy 2, but it's really excellent software. And it will start guiding, and then once it's guiding, it's going to start doing the images. Now these triggers here are examples of parameters that might change during the course of the imaging. Like if you have an equatorial mount, you're going to need to do a meridian flip if you pass the meridian while you're imaging. The software will do that automatically, but you have to have that set up in your mount settings. If, like on a cool night, the temperature is dropping and your focus is changing, it automatically monitors the HFR of your stars, and if it deviates for a certain amount, then it will perform another autofocus routine. And then if you're doing a monochrome camera with filter changes, it will also do an autofocus filter change, unless you have an offset setting, which will automatically change the focus depending on which filter you're using. But if you don't have that set up, then this will do an autofocus after the filter is changed. And then the actual instructions are down here. Dither after exposures, that's another trigger, but it does it automatically. And I do recommend dithering because it makes noise elimination a lot easier. In this case, the default is set up for every 3 exposures, it will dither. And what is dithering? It just means it moves the telescope a tiny amount so that the pixels change just a few pixels with every few images. And then other loop conditions. There are other options over here. You can do a single loop, or in this case, default is 20 iterations. You can obviously change that by just selecting the number and changing it to whatever you want. And then if you're going to be switching filters, switch filters and taking exposure, you can set the time, whether it's a light, dark, or flat, the binning, and if you have one-shot color or DSLR, you won't be able to change that. But in the case of a dedicated astro camera, you most likely will be able to change this to different binning setting. The gain, this also is auto-populated from your camera settings when you set up your equipment, but you can change it manually. Since I don't have a camera set up, really there's no field there. And then offset, again, is back for your focusing routine. And here's another annotation or note that says, for convenience, the above instruction set can be also added using the smart exposure instructions. And you can see it's pretty self-explanatory. It kind of incorporates both of these into one, where you can change the filter and the offset during the course of your imaging. Anyway, I hope this is useful to you. You can, if you have other equipment like a dome setting, there's commands for the dome over here. There's also commands for setting. For example, if you want even more automation, you can set this up during the daytime, and you can have it start at a particular time by dragging wait for time over into instruction set, and we'll put that ahead of the, and you can see the time. It can actually be the actual time. If you want to set an actual time, you can also do it according to the sunset time, which is automatically calculated for your location. Same with nautical dust and astronomical dust. It will start all at the appropriate time. And that's if you want to set it up, and let's say you have something you're doing in the evening and you just want this to start without your intervention. It will do all this automatically. And that's a brief explanation about how you can get started with the Framing Wizard, and it is highly recommended that you download N.I.N.A software, since it is free and it's highly customizable, very compatible with almost all astronomical astrophotography gear, and you'll find it quite useful. Once you get past the learning curve, it's really an awesome program. Hope this has helped. Thanks for watching.